I'm joined now by Alan Brochstein, publisher of 420 and Best. Alan, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be back, James.
You bet. Alan, we saw the sort of bottom appear in the technicals in the cannabis sector, and then, as you just said, then we weren't. And so what, in your view, has happened in sector-wide to sort of cause a resumption in the pessimism demonstrated in the sentiment of the market itself?
Yeah, it's been a very tough year, and trying to call bottoms has been challenging. I think I've officially done it twice and technically failed again. But I think we are in a bottoming process, and I think, right now we're faced with the ongoing concerns about funding, and we've seen a lot of down rounds and aggressive capital raises, and that's weighing on the sector, I believe. And, there's just, everything that comes out is a little bit disappointing. For example, yes, it's good Ontario is moving forward in moving to an open system as opposed to a lottery, a merit-based system, but it's only 20 stores a month. That's, a lot less than people wanted to see, so it's a slow pace. And they're keeping the central distribution for now, which is no bueno. So I think up in Canada, it's just been a brutal year, and it's everybody's watching to see when it ends. I would just point to some of the largest LPs seem to be holding their bottoms, and we had a pretty sharp sell-off in a lot of the smaller ones. That might be tax loss selling, for example. And some of them have bounced back pretty sharply, James. In the United States, some of the largest MSOs have held their lows, like GTI, Trulieve, even with yesterday, Curaleaf, whereas some of the smaller ones also seem to be facing some pressure.
Yeah, you bet. So Trulieve was the target of a short report, which I saw the share price collapse, and I thought, oh my gosh, what happened? Then I saw it was a short report. I haven't actually had a chance to read it. What is your take on that, the representations made in that short report?
Yeah, I think I have no problem with people being negative, and I have no problem even with the business model, which is, they front load, they short, and then they go out and tell everybody. That's fine. I mean, everybody's an adult, and they should understand the game. And I really don't have a problem with anything in there per se. It's not like they're outright lies, but I would say there's definitely some factual issues. And I think it comes down to that person has written about the sector before. I don't think they know the sector very well. And they said some things about Trulieve that were pretty silly. Like, for example, Trulieve, we've been dealing with this problem of biological assets. It's mandated by IFRS accounting, not in GAAP. A lot of these companies are moving to GAAP, by the way, next year, which will be interesting. But for now, biological accounting is a fact of life. And I have never seen Trulieve do anything but be perfectly open and upfront about the impact on their income statement. And yet the short report made it seem like they were doing something untoward with respect to their profitability, which has been exaggerated by biological assets. The company's gone out of its way to explain that. So that was one issue. The company has leading market share in Florida. There's no problem with their quality or with anything like that, but they're pointing, trying to point fingers at hoop houses. And, a lot of what they sell is extracts, and it's grown, you don't have to have the highest quality like an indoor grow, but their flower that's sold is grown indoors. So I just feel like the report was lacking. Now, with that said, I have been cautious on a few issues about Trulieve, in particular, some related party transactions, and also just the fact that the CEO's husband is under trial. And, you never know if that's going to push back to the company or not, but it's just a headline risk that I've been cognizant of.
Sure. Okay. Any bright spots out there in cannabis world as far as you're concerned?
Bright spots. So, yeah, I think it's going to be tough. The bright spot is the prices are quite low. And, it's hard to, it's really easy after the fact to say, oh, yeah, those prices were stupidly high, or, oh, yeah, those prices were stupidly low. And I don't think they're stupidly low right now. But, I have a friend, he goes back 3 decades, and he's a value investor and very tactical, an institutional investor, and he's been picking my brain the last few days, and I think that kind of tells you the reality. It's I'm in Houston, and you got to watch out during those hurricanes for the eye of the storm, because the storm comes back. So hopefully we're not in the eye, but it does feel like we're coming out of just a terrible storm, and I'm optimistic about next year, and I think Canada it's a little harder to be optimistic until because the things that are going to drive Canada are on a delay. The Ontario stores and the Cannabis 2.0, these things are going to be slow to roll out. So it's I think some of the prices in Canada for some of the less complicated, larger LPs are really low. And so, maybe there's a chance that you can make some decent money ahead of those catalysts in those names. But in the U.S., I think things are exciting. And I can't remember if we've talked about it, but Illinois is legalizing on January 1st. I think I wrote about it this week, and I think this is going to go down as one of the best legalizations ever. And, I feel like people aren't really looking at it. Now, to be fair, there's going to be supply constraints on day one, but Illinois is opening up with more stores open on January 1st than Ontario has a year later after legalizing. And Ontario is like 3 times, or not 3 times, it's larger. Sorry, it's not 3 times, it's 50% larger, I believe, than Illinois. So point being, a lot better situation, and there's a lot going on in the United States that's positive. I think Pennsylvania, we're going to see some pressure on a lot of states as the year plays out. We'll see either ballot initiatives or even legislative moves. And I just saw New Jersey apparently is going to vote if they don't go through the legislative route next year. And Florida, Arizona, these are states that could vote. You could see states like Minnesota go the legislative route. So I think in the U.S., there's going to be a lot of catalysts throughout the year. So.
Interesting. Do you see any long-term fallout that might represent a downsizing in the market size from the vape health issues that have sort of plagued us this year? Do you see that becoming a bigger thing, like the Boeing 737?
No, I don't think so. I think to the contrary, it was a nice wake-up call. I've been concerned about vaping hardware and the vape, concentrates, additives, that there's just not a lot of knowledge around that. And obviously, in the black market, it's a lot worse. So I think the industry got a taste of what a crisis can look like. It seems to be behind us. Even the one state that banned it, Massachusetts, is opening up again. And it was good to see no other states took that kind of rash move like Massachusetts did. During the November reporting season, every company I listened to said that it had already passed. So I think there'll be, maybe a little bit of an overhang over time. But the reality is, this is a chance to get some of the illicit market consumers into the regulated market. It's a wake-up call to them in particular, because they are going on the trust me stuff with no verification at all. And I think that the legal market has the opportunity to win over people that, people shop at Whole Foods and all sorts of organic places, really care about what's going into their bodies. They should care what's going into their lungs, James. And I think this is a nice wake-up call to consumers and to the industry.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think that the persistence of the black market is going to weigh on earnings of companies in Canada and the U.S.? And if so, are there states that are where it's more prevalent than others and where they're doing a better job of controlling the black market? Or do you think that that's just a problem that's going to be a feature of the cannabis industry for, the next 100 years?
Yeah, I don't know about the next 100 years, but yeah, it's a feature. Even in Colorado, which I think is finally overcoming the black market, there's been a resurgence in growth in Colorado, and pricing has gone up. And I haven't seen anybody really dig into it or write about it, but it to me, it looks like the black market is losing some share in Colorado. But this is a big problem in Canada and California in particular. Right. And the problem isn't one only by government enforcement. You cannot government enforce the illicit market away by itself. You need to win the consumer over, and you do that with good products, with information about your products, and convenience. And the illicit market's had a lot of advantages, especially where you are in Canada. where there aren't enough stores, there's not delivery, things like that. So, and not the right form factor. So I think it takes time. I think we're seeing some enforcement in California, big time, both on the retail stores that are illegal as well as operators who are illegal. And so I think it takes all of that. You can't rely on just enforcement from the government. You can't just mandate the illicit market away. I think the industry itself, I hear it all the time. I was listening to the Fire and Flower call yesterday, for example. The illicit market remains the biggest competitor, and that's the right mindset. Instead of worrying about what your legal competitor's doing, everybody needs to be thinking about how can we make it better and more convenient and cheaper for the consumer.
You bet. All right, Alan, that's a great contribution as usual. I thank you very much for your input, and I will see you next week. Oh, no, I won't. It's Christmas time.
All right, take care.
Merry Christmas.
All right.
Thanks,
Merry
man.
Christmas.
Bye.
Happy New Year to you, Jane.
Thank you.